Hey everybody, welcome back to the Digging Deep podcast with Nicholas Nick. We got a special guest here today, Michael. Michael's in the house. Welcome, Michael. How you doing today, brother?
Hey Nick, thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. I love these meetings because of our pre-catch-ups too. We get to know each other a little bit and then we get to dive deep into this. So it was really great meeting you and I'm excited to talk about your story, which is so similar, I think, to what so many of my customers are dealing with and so many investors are dealing with. And you gave me a little summary right beforehand, and it was basically you were traveling Monday through Friday, 5 days a week for work and you want it out, right? Who doesn't want out? I know a lot of people think traveling for work is a blast, right? Oh, I wish I could always do it until you actually do it. And then it's like, wait a second, I'm never home. I'm always gone. I'm always in airports, all that other stuff. But you were still able to escape that life, build a better life through real estate, all while being gone 5 days a week.
Yeah, that's right. And we can go into as much detail as you want on that, but usually people ask like, "What is your motivation?" Well, I ask people. I have a podcast too, the Be Someone podcast with Michael Hoang, and I would like to always ask people what's their why, and then I tell people my why is that eventually me and my wife wanted to have kids. Eventually, I wanted to share the same bedroom with my wife in the evening. And we kind of had a deal that she was in school for a master's degree and I was traveling for work. And the deal was you could do whatever you want until I graduate. When I graduate, you got to come home, whatever that looks like. I don't care. Just come home.
Got it.
And so for me, I started building out a portfolio of single family real estate while traveling Monday through Friday in a different city every week, flying all over the country.
Wow. Wow. And what was your main, it's not as easy as you make it sound, right? First of all, I love the rule that you have with your wife, right? Like, hey, when I'm done doing this crazy stuff, I need you to be done doing this crazy stuff too, right? We'll come together, we'll start our familyhood, for lack of a better term. But what first got you into real estate? Where'd the bug come from that even told you about it to get out of your job?
Well, I started with stocks. I kind of felt like I guess I should back up further than that since we like to dive deep on this show. Um, I never really believed in a paycheck, and that was really powerful to me because when I was a kid, my father had a construction business where he made a lot of money during the summer and very little during the winter.
Mm,
And then my first couple of jobs when I was younger was related to oil and gas. And it was feast or famine there too. We would make a lot of money and then the contract would end and we would get laid off, draw unemployment for 6 months, and then get called back for another contract. So I didn't have this belief that I'm entitled to a paycheck for life. And when I worked my way up into the white collar corporate world, I was surrounded by people who went to like private schools and had like very high powered degrees, and they went from $0 living with their parents to a very good salary their entire adult life. So we just had a different belief system, and I saw there was no sense of urgency. There was no what ifs going on in their mind. Where I come from a family that you were not guaranteed a paycheck each month, and so even when I had a nice steady corporate job, I was just always preparing for a layoff, and I just thought it was always around the corner. I guess I just had PTSD. And so my last job I was at for 8 years and everything was fine. So I was always building something in the background. I started with stocks. Okay.
okay.
S&P 500, Roth IRA, 401k, all that good stuff. And I did that for years. And it's great. It's better than spending your money on nothing. But I quickly realized like that's not going to get me to where I need to go. And something else that really just hit me like a hammer on the head was that I was in a role where my supervisor and I both reported to his supervisor. So I got to see two levels above me in the corporate structure. And I was looking at a man who was in his 60s, balding, made over $250,000 a year. I don't know the exact number, but I know it was over $250,000 a year because my boss was nearly making $250,000 a year. And he was miserable. He had a bad family life. And I said something to him one time about putting money in an IRA, a Roth IRA. And I forget years ago, the limit was lower. It was like 5 grand or something. But I was like, yeah. And he was like, I just can't get breathing room to put 5 grand a year into an IRA. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? Like, these are the people that I want to be. This is what I want to grow up to
Mhm.
be. And then grow up to be, I was in my 30s, but I was like, this is who I want to grow up to be. And so I'm looking at stocks are doing all right. I mean, it's not terrible, especially if you're busy, but I knew I needed something more than that. And that's what led me to real estate.
Wow. And it's I can really relate to the boss thing because I've said it before, even on this show. I call it like running out of role models, right? And it's like if you don't want to be your boss, you need to quit your job. I mean, it's really that's if you have the liberty to, because it's like that's technically your goal, right? And it's like I had the same thing in restaurants. Everyone was miserable, everyone was grumpy, everyone was working more than me. And then one day I woke up and I was like, why the hell am I so, I don't want to be my boss or my boss's boss. What the fuck am I even fighting? Like, what mountain am I climbing right now if I don't even want to be these people? Now that was I didn't jump right into real estate, but that was my um trigger to jump ship, if you will. So very similar.
Wow, running out of role models. I just wrote that down. I'm stealing that from you, Nick.
Please, really. It's
Running out of
true.
role model. That's
It's,
what's happened. That's
right.
what happened. That's
Wow.
exactly. It was just a progression as I climbed the corporate ladder. I got to what I thought was I was one layer from the CEO, and I'm like, really, this is what it is for $1 billion publicly traded company. This is what it looks like, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
ran out of role models, Nick. That's exactly what happened to me.
Isn't that insane? And then now, so you already knew probably because you were in investing, so you knew I was in restaurants, so I had no fucking idea real estate was even a vehicle to make money. I was like, what the fuck is flipping a house? Like I never heard of this shit before, and then I had to like learn about that from the ground up, right? I mean, I was flipping burgers, I was in customer service, like I had no idea about all these ways to make money. So because you had this investing background, you had this like more high powered background, you already knew that it was in the ethos. You already knew it was in the world that it existed.
Yeah, and the last company that I worked for before I retired, because I've been real estate retired for over a year now, is that we were buying mom and pop companies and rolling them into our bigger entity, our bigger enterprise. And so I was watching our CEO flip small companies. And so a company is very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of tax implications. There's a lot of customer relationships to manage. There's regulations in different states or sometimes even counties or cities. And so I was seeing that happen firsthand. And the flips were good. But when I looked at real estate, I said, wow, this is like 10 times easier than what I'm doing. And I can do it myself. And instead of making $10 million dollars for the company, I could make 500,000 or $1 million for myself.
Yeah. Wow. And like you said, you were already doing it the harder way. So houses almost seemed easier, right? Personnel, insurance, profit and loss statements. There's a lot of moving parts there, right? As to where like with houses, it maybe is more simplified and what I call like a shorter tail, It's like whenever I make decisions, like I don't like things that could last for years. I like decisions that could last for months because I might not be in the mood for this in years, right? So I feel like houses also have like an end game. If you want out, you could sell it. Buying a business, if it sucks, you might not be able to sell it until it's fully repaired, right? You might not be able to offload that business as quickly as you'd hope. So it's kind of cool. You came from that background of working in that world. So houses, I'm sure, seemed maybe natural or easier for you.
Much easier, much less moving parts. It's a one pager, man, to do single family. It's so simple. But when I got motivated to start investing in real estate because I knew I couldn't do this job forever, um, our first deal was a house hack. This is what we landed on, and I can't thank my wife enough that she was okay with a house hack. Might not work for everybody, especially if you have young kids. We didn't have kids at that time, and we don't have kids yet either. That's coming in the near future, God willing.
Yeah.
Um, because we don't even know if we can have kids. We've never tried. And so our first deal was a house hack. And so, everyone knows what house hack is. You could buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, live in one unit, rent out the rest.
Okay.
The rent from those other units help you qualify for the mortgage. But we were in a little bit of a time crunch and we couldn't find a 2 to 4 unit that made sense. So we bought a large home in an older, rougher part of town with a lot of bedrooms and then had a master bathroom, like on the ensuite, an ensuite bathroom. And so when we did that, and we thought, okay, if we could just cover half the mortgage, we would be good. But through the miracle of real estate, houses appreciate, rents go up, debt gets paid down. In a very short order, we were paying none of our own mortgage. We were living there for free. So when I became what we call financially free last year, or it's like a year and a half now, someone asked me, when did you become financially free? And they gave me a different definition. And I was like, oh, by that definition, my bills and lifestyle being covered by real estate, I might have been financially free in like 2018, 2019. I didn't treat it like that though. So we did a house hack for about 4 years. We lived in an older, rougher part of town in a huge house. And that was great. And it was kind of funny that when I started doing direct mail, so I was sending out letters to buy single family homes, I was living in an older community, and I was driving out to the suburbs on the west side of Houston, Texas. And it was kind of funny because the media has this picture in their mind of the crooked, mean old landlord. But me and my wife drive 10-year-old cars that are paid off that we repair. We're living in an older home in the inner city, and we were driving out to the suburbs for me to work on properties and collect rent from my tenants who had worse credit than me, but they had a nice BMW, and complaining that I need two cars, that I don't park my cars on my street. I have really nice cars. And then you get their application and you pull their credit to be your renter, and you see that they have like all kinds of messed up credit, all kinds of debt, but they're living in a nicer house than me, in a safer community, driving nicer cars than me. And then I was driving back into the inner city in an older, rougher community at night. So that was the real picture of real estate that I got, from doing that, not what the media told me it was. But when we did our first, what we consider our first deal, is because we didn't really consider our house hack our first deal, but when we started sending out letters, I started buying houses in the suburbs west of Houston, and we can go into a lot of detail on that, Nick, if you'd like to.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but we were sending direct mail letters, and so we were targeting. I found zip codes that I believe were good investments. We analyzed how many cash buyers there were in each zip code, so I didn't just send mail to anyone. I targeted 5 zip codes where I saw a lot of investor activity, hoping that if investors are investing there, they know something I don't. You
Right.
don't have to reinvent the wheel when you're doing real estate investing. There is nothing new. Okay, there's nothing new. Everybody already knows this. Just get networked, find mentorship, find coaching, or find someone that wants to take you along for the ride. And so I invested where other investors were, in great school districts and great zip codes, and I was targeting lists of absentee landlords. And so these are people that live out of state, that have houses that are rental properties here, but they don't live here. And so whenever they have older properties, or maybe they ran out of depreciation because they owned it 20 years or more, maybe they had a tenant destroy the house, they're more likely to sell. And so I targeted an absentee out-of-state landlord, high equity list. The houses were all paid off or nearly paid off, like 50% or more paid off. And I started sending letters. And I send a sequence of letters where each letter, the messaging changed. It went something from like, hey, I want to buy your house cash, to, hey, it's okay if you don't want to sell me your house, but if you refer me to someone, I'll pay you a referral fee, to like, hey, this is the last letter I'm going to send you. I'll never do it again. To like, the last one was like, okay, just keep this letter in case you need me in the future. And then people would call me and be like, what? What, Michael? And so they're reading every letter, and it's an ongoing conversation. Even though you're getting crickets on your end, people are actually reading the direct mail.
Got it.
And so when I would set this up where I was flying out Monday through Friday for work, and then people were calling me, and I was setting appointments for that weekend to come back. I would fly into Houston, and instead of spending time with my lovely wife and working out and meal prepping and living a healthy life, which is what we like to do now, I would then go out and meet sellers and walk properties and look at houses with them. Some of them were in Houston, some of them weren't. Um, and when I would walk these properties with them, you would think that, there's a picture out there that real estate investors are taking advantage of people. But the houses that I bought, that I was able to put under contract, they had real problems. Problems that the seller did not understand how to solve. Tenants that weren't paying, they didn't want to deal with it. Houses that needed more repair than they had cash. And one of the houses I bought, which is the house that I'm standing in right now, it was originally going to be a rental, but we moved into it. The guy was rich that sold me this house, and he sold it to me for nearly 50 cents on the dollar. He lived in a ranch in Central Texas, somewhere near Killeen, Texas, for those of you who know. And this house was paid off years ago, and he had like the same tenant in here for 11 or 12 years that just destroyed this house. he had plenty of money. He didn't want to deal with it. He just didn't want to come down here and deal with it. And so he was just straight up with me. He said, Michael, I know you're an investor. You need to make money. Go out there, take some photos. He didn't even meet me here. Go look at the house, make me a cash offer. He said, don't pay all the closing costs for me. That was that was a really easy transaction for me. And so but do you want to go into the numbers on my first deal, or how
Well,
deep
yeah,
do
and I
you go?
also want to remind everyone too that it's like, it's the rich people that will give these houses away because they can afford to lose the money. I've got a property right now in Vermont. If anyone wants it, it's theirs. Okay, $250,000. You can walk away with it right fucking now. It's worth $400,000. It needs less than $30,000 in repairs. And it's like the point is, I can afford to take that loss. And what happens with rich people or wealthy people or whatever the hell you want to call it is we respect that losing sleep at night is more costly than losing money on a property, right? And it's like, I think a lot of people, they're like looking for that ultra distressed person, and they're not necessarily looking for the guy who's got 15 properties, who's got another property that they're tired of. I mean, a tired landlord, I think, is perfect, but not just that, but a tired, successful landlord, right? If they're just a tired landlord and it's the only way they make money, they might not be as willing. But if they own another business like I do, and this is just a nuisance, I'm like, hey, this is a house I bought 5 years ago. I wish I would have never bought. I've been dealing with it for 5 years. I woke up last week and I was like, I'm done. And it sounds like that was almost, where this guy was. What was his pain point for the property?
Yeah, his pain point was he knew the tenants that were here for 12 years, and I think they had like traded some rent for work. I can tell they replaced the water heater. Um, then we had a freeze here in Houston, Texas, and our structures, our world is not built for freezes and snows.
Yeah.
And a pipe burst in the attic and flooded the living room. So when I came out here to look, the carpet was nasty. There was sheetrock that was a problem. And he had not managed this real estate correctly. There were people here that were not on the lease.
Mm,
There was a boyfriend. The lease was with a woman. There was a boyfriend here who had been here for years, still get their mail years later, and who was not on the lease. And, I'm talking to the guy, and it's like half the time he doesn't want to talk about the house. He's telling me about oil leases he owns and how he's got a pension from the military and he owns this ranch. And this guy's got a lot of things going on. He has some rentals near him in Killeen, and this was like the least of his worries. And his pain point was, I think he maybe wasn't getting all the rent all the time, and they kind of worked out some kind of deal. And so for him, he was like, "Can you just take it?" And basically, he needed me to be the bad guy to say like, "Hey guys, I'm buying this house. It's time for you guys to move," because he
New
had not
sheriff in
like,
town. Yeah.
yeah, right. And he had not, he gave me a lease that was like 7 years out of date. So I guess he just been kind of doing month to month with them for half the time that they had been here. And so for him, when that pipe burst, it was time for them to go.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, that was his breaking point too. He burst as well. He's like, hey, you know what? This is no longer worth it. We're both bursting and we're both done. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more stressful. Like I said, you lose 2 nights of sleep and you're like, what am I doing here? Like a night of sleep is priceless. I never lose sleep. So if I'm not sleeping, I know I got to do something about it. But that's good. So you said you actually have some numbers on you, on like some figures on how this property went?
Yeah. So we paid about 130 for it, either 130 or 135, because I bought two properties in the zip code back to back at the nearly the same time. But we paid either 130 or 135 on this one. We put 17 grand into this house, and then it appraised for we paid it 130, put 17 in it, and it appraised for like 220. And I had private lenders because I wanted to do everything the hard way. So I was my own GC, hiring subs. Don't do that. Use a GC, especially if it's a heavy lift. This was a small rehab for me. But it's a heavy lift. Use a general contractor. I would go use hard money. I used private money. I had met private money lenders through networking at self-directed IRA meetups. And so I had private lenders. Go use a hard money lender guy. And the reason I recommend new people use hard money is because the rehab goes in what we call draws. And so, just for easy math, if you have a $30,000 rehab, a hard money lender will likely only let you do 10,000 at a time. So you do 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. So your rehab will go in three phases of 10,000 just for round numbers. And then what happens if you're a new guy and this is your first deal, and a general contractor calls you and says, "Hey, Michael, it's done. Can I get my next 10 grand? Can we go to work?" The hard money lender will send out a draw inspector. It's like a home inspector, but dumbed down a little bit because they're not going to go through every little nook and cranny. And if the work is not done, or if the work is not done correctly, the hard money lender will not give you the money, and then you get to be the bad guy. I'm sorry, you get to be the good guy and say, "I would love to pay you, but the hard money lender said these three things need to be done first, and then he'll release our money so you can get back to work." And so when you're new, having a hard money lender actually kind of keeps your general contractor on the straight and narrow. I didn't know that at first. I now know that. But on this one, we paid 130 for it. We put about 17,000 in it. It appraised over it appraised for 220. It was like 218 or something like that. And through the miracle of leverage, my private money lender funded this project. And then when it is appraised, we did the Burr method. So you buy, rent, you buy, rehab, refinance, rent, refinance, repeat. I got my R's all mixed up. And so as soon as it depends on the lender, but when it's rehabbed, two things. One, you can advertise the property for rent before it's done. So talk to your leasing agent or wherever you're posting. Some people won't post it until it's done. You can put like, "Hey, it's available March 1st or whatever," and you can put photos of what it will look like and just say the rehab's not done. You can even come show them the property if you want and say, "When it's done, it's yours." But you can start leasing before the rehab is complete. Two, if the rehab is done and you have a signed lease agreement and a deposit check from the tenant, the lender will do the refinance and take your private money or hard money lender out. And so my private lender loved me because I was getting in and out of his hard money or his private money loan in 30 to 35, 40 days. And he loved that because some lenders might be upset because they get less interest when you get in and out of the deal quicker. My private lender was very seasoned. He had done a lot of private lending, and he said, "You're lowering my risk by getting my money back to me as soon
Right.
as possible." And he was always taught, don't worry about the return on your principal, worry about the return of your principal. He's not worried about if he makes 5 grand, 7 grand, or 8 grand. He's worried about the likelihood of getting the money back, his principal at least. So he loved the fact that I was in and out real quick. I worked out pre-approvals with my lender ahead of time. And so as soon as I had a lease signed, and some lenders will just accept the lease, other lenders wanted to see like a deposit check. Other lenders are a little more stringent. They want to see the deposit check actually cash into your bank account and you give them the bank statement showing the thing cashed. But either way, we got refinanced out and got his money out of this property really quick. Property's cash flowed great. Everything was like $500, $600, $700 a month. This one was about $550 a month when I first started. And how real estate works is your rents go up over time, so the cash flow increased. But I projected this one out as if it was going to be a rental because the initial plan was to make this a rental. But what had happened was once we got a couple houses and we were living in our house hack in the inner city part of Houston, this was going to be a rental property. And I did the numbers and I told my wife, "Hey, you ready to move? Are you done having roommates?" Because we built up the cash flow to where we could move into this property, no longer house hack, turn the old house hack property into a traditional long-term rental, and we had enough cash flow to cover our cost of living here. So for 4 years, I lived in a rougher property for free, transitioning to now living in the suburbs in a smaller, newer, nicer property with no roommates, and now also living for free with the cash flow from my other properties. And so we ended up moving into this one. And so you need less properties to make yourself financially free than you think. Just
Yeah.
took me 3 properties to hit my cash flow goals of covering my cost of living while my wife and I are still working. We plow our money into savings in the S&P 500 initially, then we paid off our cars. And it depends on the lifestyle you want to live, but you need less cash flow than you think to cover your cost of living.
Well, that, and I think when you buy the properties at the right price, right, it helps, right? I mean, if you pay full retail, like if you go back and run your cash flow numbers off paying full retail, right, it becomes different. So you also have this great system of, taking what would be a wholesale deal, right, not wholesaling it at all, taking that 50 cents on the dollar kind of vibe, 70 cents on the dollar, and then doing the work yourself and then keeping it, right? Well, now you have the super low loan. You may even be able to take cash out on the deal, like you mentioned on the other one. You might be able to take a $50,000 payday right now. The mortgage that you have set in place is still going to be covered by the tenant that you're about to put in place. I mean, I think that this would be really worth like almost flow charting, but because it's coming from a lot of areas. We have the refinance, right? We have the tenant, we have the down payment from the tenant. And as long as their payment cash flows above whatever you refinance at your monthly mortgage, you still won, even if you took out additional cash flow on the refinance.
That's right. And I had been investing in stocks for years leading up to this. A stock can't do that.
Right.
A stock can't do that. A bond can't do that. An ETF can't do that.
You got to just wait. All you need is time for that. And this, you're able to shorten your time. And that's probably made it seem super attractive to you. You're like, wait a second, I could shorten the length of time where I receive my cash flow. That's beautiful. So give me the year of the story of the house hack and give me the year of the story of the direct mail.
House hack 2018.
Okay.
Regrets that I made, Nick. And I hope everyone listening doesn't do the same thing. I was scared. I didn't have proper guidance. My network wasn't as strong as it was today. And when I got in that house hack, I was like, cool. Nothing exploded, nothing burnt down. I did something with real estate.
Yeah,
Let's just hunker down and save money.
love it.
And it's not a bad way to go. We were plowing our income into the S&P 500, paying our cars off, reducing our debt. And there's worse things you can do in your life. But looking back now, I should not have stayed in that house for 4 years. I should not have waited. I think out of the 4 years, I think I started doing 2018. I bought this house. I think I started doing direct mail in 2020. So for 2 years, I just hunkered down and saved money. And it's not a bad way to go. But here's the other, like, I guess you can call it false belief that I had, Nick, is that when I started doing direct mail, I didn't even know if I qualified for a loan to keep the house at that time. And so I just thought I was just going by what I was taught. I was told if it's a good deal, the money will find you. There is no shortage of money on this beautiful planet we live on. There is only a shortage of good deals. So I learned how to underwrite a deal. I underwrote hundreds of deals for practice. And I was making great offers that were really good on properties. And some people were telling me no, and some people were telling me yes, and that was just fine. But when I finally put a property under contract, I didn't know if I could keep it. So my goal was, let me wholesale it, make 10 or 20 grand or whatever I can make. If I maybe one day I could flip a house, and then maybe if I flipped enough houses, one day I could hold rentals. So in my mind, there was this hierarchy of like wholesaling, flipping, and then maybe one day you can hold rentals. And what happened is the first deal that came in, I had someone in my network who's very, very, very influential to me, has been very helpful in my life. That's why I tell all you guys, no matter what phase your journey is in, please get out their network. He said, "Hey, Mike, have you talked to a lender?" Like, and when he says lender, he means like a conventional lender, like a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, 30-year fix, not like a hard money lender. Have you talked to a lender? I said, no, why? He said, you might be able to keep this one. This thing might cash flow. You might want to hold on to this one. It's in a great zip code. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just, can I get the private money loan? Because this guy was my private lender. And I'm just like worried that I'm just expecting him to say no to the private money loan. So then I can go run and find an in buyer so I can wholesale it, right? So I'm just like, give me the no, give me the no. So I got to go. And he's like, no, you might be able to hold this one. And yeah, I would love to give you the private money loan on it. I was like, okay, we just went from wholesale to flip. And then maybe we go to buy and hold. And so I talked to a lender. Guys, it costs $0 to talk to a lender, do paperwork with them, and get a pre-approval. And when I did the paperwork with the lender and I hand them the sales contract for this property and they crunched the numbers on it, they were like, Michael, you can keep this one. This one will work as a rental. You just need to get it leased out before we give you the loan to take out your lender. And I was like, they were like, okay. And then they explained to me what DTI is, debt to income ratio. And I didn't understand at the time what it was. But they said, Michael, you're doing great. You've been counting your cash flow from your house hack on your tax returns for 2 years. I didn't know at the time. Most people put their rental money in their pocket when they have a roommate. Don't do that. Claim it on your taxes. It allows you to take more write offs. And so they said you're taking your cash flow and you paid down your cars. Your DTI is almost zero. And when we give you this loan, they use the cash flow, the projected rents from the property to wash out the debt of the new loan on this new property. So I bought one house and my debt to income ratio went up 1%. I bought another house, my debt to income ratio went up 0%. And the lender said, is if these deals look like this, you can do 10 of these. And I was floored because I thought, oh, if I could only hold one, oh, boy, if I could just keep one property. The lender was like, no, bring me 10 of these. We're putting you in 10 mortgages. And then after that, we have another loan product we can switch you to called a DSCR, where you can get more than 10 loans. Just keep finding these deals. So, Nick, I just want to encourage everybody listening, like, do not put these limiting beliefs on yourself. Network, talk with experienced people, talk to your mentor if you have one, and go to meetups because you don't know what's possible until you get out there and make it happen. I wanted to wholesale a deal using direct mail. I ended up with a rental property. I ended up with 2 rental properties. I ended up with 3 rental properties. I ended up living for free when my objective was to wholesale.
Well, no, and I think that that's interesting too. I love how organic your story is, right? Like you didn't set out with this master plan. You came across good deals and you had the right people in your path. And they were like little gurus along the way, right? Not that they were the education gurus, but you go to this lender, goes, hey, we need to get you in more of these because he makes money every time you take out a loan too. And he's like, hey, this is great. So he's helping himself by helping you. And it's like it seemed like you kept surrounding yourself by the right people, whether you knew it or not, and the private money lender, the regular lender, and then before you knew it, you were able to like gamify what real estate is, and then you kind of cracked the code. And you said one of them, your property, your DTI was zero. I bet some of them your DTI is negative 10% because as you cash flow, right, you now actually affect your debt to income ratio. So as you profit, your DTI actually drops, and then you could take out more in loans as needed. I mean, that's a pretty great story. I have a question. Do you use property management companies for this?
So I believe when you buy one house, you're committing yourself to buying 10. The reason I say that is because if you have 1 or 2 properties,
Okay.
you can manage it yourself, depends on your career and your time commitment. But the onesies, twosies guys, you end up with problems if you self manage. A lot of people that I've bought distressed real estate from are landlords with 1, 2, maybe 3. So when you buy one, you're committing yourself to buying 10. So you need to race to 10. Depending on the market that you're in, it could be different because property management companies usually work off cash flow and they need to take a percentage of the cash flow for their fee to make it make it make sense for them. And so when you're in lower cost markets, you might need more doors. If you're in higher cost markets, it might make sense on your first or second deal. But for me, I wanted to race to the point where I could then hand it over to a property management company. But when you're at 1, 2, 3 properties, you can manage it yourself. Doesn't mean you have to. You can use a property management company even at one door. But as you could tell, I was kind of a DIY guruing it, reading books. I got licensed as an agent after I became an investor. And guys, do not get licensed as an agent to start to become an investor. That is a waste of time. It is a distraction. I got licensed after I had several houses, and looking back on it, hasn't done a whole lot for my investing career. It's taken a lot of time and money and continuing education away from me, and it put a list of things on me I can't do anymore, like talk directly with sellers that are represented by other agents. So just be careful with that. But I got licensed as an agent. I read books. I got certifications on being a property manager. And then later I got certified to manage apartments. I have something called a CAM, a CAM certified apartment manager. We can talk about that later down the road. But if you're buying one, you're committing yourself to buying 10 so you can actually hand it over to someone. Or if you build more like 20, 30, whatever the number is in your market, you can build your own property management company in-house and hand it over to a team that you hire. But when you buy one, at least in my market, you're in a race to 10. Your market could be a little bit different because you want to turn it into a real business and hand it over to somebody.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That way it's worth it in the end too. So you can still catch your profits. Dude, that's awesome. So two things. One is, what would you say to somebody wanting to get started? First of all, that was a great outline. Let me just recap that real quick. I felt like your story is so great because it's almost like a step-by-step process. Is really what your story is, and it comes out almost like guidance, right? I already feel guided because you're like, this happened naturally, and then this happened naturally. So, what would you say to someone just getting started out, wanted to get started in this method? What would be like a tip or a trick or a mindset tip or something that they could lean on to help them, achieve these similar goals?
Stay out of consumer debt. That's the big one because I was surrounded by people who were not working to live, but living to work. They had to debt service their huge houses, huge cars,
Mm,
timeshares, boats. So it took me a few houses. It would have took them a portfolio of homes or a small apartment complex for them to replace their income. So stay out of debt. Two, network. I don't care what phase you are. You don't need an expert to go to these things. There's RIAs around you. Every city you're in, there's Facebook groups for like Cincinnati real estate or Houston, Texas real estate investors. Get in those. Meetup.com. Bigger Pockets has a forum where they just list your local meetups. There's RIAs. Get involved with your local meetups. Stay out of big consumer debt. Stay out of non-productive debt. A debt on a home that produces income for you is great. A debt on a big home for you and your wife to live in, not so great.
sure.
And my other tip would be on the shelf behind me here. Uh, this is all you need to know, man. Just read this book. For those of you not watching on YouTube or Facebook, I'm holding up Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. Every
Okay.
question you have, do not ask who, ask how. So stay out of debt, go to meetup groups, read this book if you're a newbie.
Love that. Yeah, I love that book too. It's so good. It's almost like another course. Even I've 30 employees, and it was so refreshing even for me to listen to that. And awesome, dude. So now, if you will, tell everyone how to find you, and then and so that way they can follow you on their own.
Yeah, my Instagram is at Michael Be Someone on Instagram. My podcast is the Be Someone podcast with Michael Hoang. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And I started that podcast because I was on a journey to be someone, and along the way, I learned the secret. The secret is your friends, the people you surround yourself, the people you choose to be with, because that's who made me who I am today. And I also give out my phone number on every podcast. Please don't call me because I get so many spam calls. Please just text me 832 301 9672. If you have a deal in the Houston, Texas area you want me to take a look at, you want me to help you on, or if you're a wholesaler or an agent that has something you want to sell to me, take a look at that. If you want to find ways that we can partner together, or if you're a private lender and you want to work together and deploy some capital into some of these deals, give me a text and just follow my Instagram.
I love it. And can you say that number one more time for us?
Yes, sir. 832 301 9672 in Houston, Texas.
Perfect. I love that. I do the same thing. I give my cell phone out on when I'm guest on other people's podcasts. I'm like, hey, feel free to give me a shout. I'm here for you. Michael, this has been awesome. I'm even going to hit you up. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit. I love your journey. You made it even seem simple to me, and I've been in real estate for 10 years. So I'm sure anyone else that's watching was like, wow, like that was such an organic, natural story. And I think it's got a lot of our interest peaked. So I'll be reaching out to you offline. And I look forward to strengthening our relationship too, man. I really
Yep.
love it.
Yep. And we're getting Nick on my podcast too, by the way. So follow my podcast for Nick's episode where I'm gonna shut my mouth and we're gonna let Nick tell his story.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Michael, thank you so much. I hope you have a great week, dude.
You too, man.
See you, brother.